The target date fund. Every 401k plan has them. 401ks have become extremely popular as a mode of savings for employees. In fact, they're the most popular mode of savings for employees. 401ks allow you to defer your salary either pre-tax or after tax in the form of a Roth contribution or truly after tax, which I've discussed in other videos. And you can defer a pretty decent amount of your salary. They also offer a matching contribution by your employer in most cases. Now, 401k plans offer specific investment options. And in this video, we're going to talk about the default investment option, which in my opinion is in many cases suboptimal in terms of financial planning and may not necessarily be the best way to invest your 401k contributions and your hard-earned money. The default investment is called a target date fund. Target date funds, by definition, are designed to be invested in a manner that is in line with your retirement date. Target date is basically also another way to say target date is your retirement date. And really it's retirement age. And they define retirement age as 65. And so the target date fund is going to be invested with 65 as the default year of retirement for every single employee. Every single employee. Is every single employee going to retire at 65 exactly? Probably not. But that is the default. Oftentimes it's okay as in terms of being a default because not everybody understands how to build a decent allocation to stocks and bonds that may be more optimal than the target date. And so the target date is kind of designed to kind of keep investors out of their own way unless they're interested in doing some research to figure out how to build a more optimal allocation. So let's first talk about kind of how the target date fund is constructed. So again, as I had mentioned, it always is going to assume age 65 as the retirement year. And the idea is for it to be invested in such a way that it is going to get more and more conservative as you get closer to that year, that retirement year, age 65. For one person, age 65, maybe 2050. For another person, age 65, maybe 2030. So they're going to be in their specific target date fund, maybe titled 2030, maybe 2040, and it's going to be invested accordingly. And again, as you get closer, it's going to get more and more conservative. And in this case, what we're looking at here is you're going to be as high as around 60% bonds by your age 65 if you're in your appropriate target date fund. Is that okay? Maybe, maybe not. It depends on, number one, the interest rate environment at the time of retirement. Maybe yields are zero like they were in the earlier 2000s, from 2010, 2011, that time frame up until recently as 2023 or 2022. And so your bond return is going to be extremely low. That may not be optimal for your financial plan. Or if you elect some other investment and you're 100% stocks and you're turning 65, maybe that's not optimal because you retire at the worst possible time. Maybe it's October of 2007 as an example, right before the financial crisis. But the idea of the target date fund is, as you can see here, is by the time you're age 65, you're about 60% bonds in this example. Maybe that's okay. Maybe it's not. It depends on every person's plan. Now, we're going to jump into a case to look at why and where this may be suboptimal. So let's look at Theo and Cassie. We've looked at their situation previously as it pertains to health insurance planning. Right now, we're going to look at it as it specifically as it pertains to their retirement income plan. So we're fast forwarding 20 years. It's now 2045. Theo and Cassie are well into their retirement. They're having a good old time. They're still very healthy. They're still traveling. They're traveling more than they thought they were going to be traveling by the time they're in the mid-70s. And they are on a solid path in terms of their retirement income. They've been taking money from from Theo's 401k. They've taken money from their brokerage account. They've taken some cash from the Roth IRAs as needed. And now we're looking at Cassie's 401k. She's 74. She still has not taken a dime out of her 401k plan yet. And you can see that that balance of her 401k is now $2.4 million. Next year, when Cassie turns 75, will be the first time that she is required to take a distribution from her 401k account. This is her required beginning date, also known as required minimum distributions. IRS mandated withdrawals, which we can expand on in later videos. But the point is that if Theo were invested in the target date fund, despite the fact that, yes, she's 20 years into her retirement, but if we go back to the year that she retired, let's just say it was at age 60, which is what it happened to be as a part of their plan, that's 15 years ago. At age 60, her fund would have been around 50% stocks. So for 15 years, she would have been 50+% bonds in her 401k account. In those entire 15 years, she had not taken a single dime out of her portfolio. What may have been more optimal is for her to be more aggressively invested because of the fact that other accounts were the source of retirement income. Theo's 401k, the brokerage investment account, for example. Those accounts may not necessarily be invested very aggressively or as aggressively as Cassie's 401k because they're in withdrawal mode. While on the other hand, with her 401k, if she were in a more optimal allocation, such as, maybe she rolled it to an IRA. If she does that, she has much more open architecture in terms of investment selection, kind of the world, if you will, in terms of investment options. Versus in the 401k, she has maybe 15 to 20 investments to choose from, i.e. the target date fund. So the point I'm trying to make here is that the 401k, number one, is going to have somewhat limited investment options. But number two, the default investment option may not necessarily be optimal for your specific plan. You need to look at your resources holistically. Are you married? Do you have other investments that you are going to potentially be able to utilize for retirement income? And then therefore, are you able to defer taking funds from a different account until a later date in your financial plan? But if you just stuck with the default investment option and allowed the target date fund to just get more and more conservative even into your retirement, then you're automatically going to be more than likely overly conservative and therefore miss out on potential returns if you're not properly allocated to more aggressive investments such as equities. My recommendation would be to review your 401k. Number one, check to see what you're currently invested in. Are you currently invested in the target date fund? If you're around 50 years old and you're planning to retire in the next 10 to 15 years, I would encourage you to research your target date fund if that is what you are invested in. Because if you are 50, your target retirement is probably around 2040. 15 years from now, 2040. So you're more than likely invested in the target retirement 2040 fund. You need to look at what the glide path is for that specific mutual fund. And if that glide path is showing you that by the time you're age 60, you're going to be 50+% bonds, you need to ask yourself, is that appropriate for my financial plan? Because if you are someone like Theo and Cassie who has other resources at your disposal, you may not necessarily want to be that conservative. But if you stay in that target date fund, that default, you're automatically going to be more conservative. You may not even realize it. And so I would encourage you to review your target date fund specifically. And if you're not sure, if you believe that you are not aligned with your specific plan, then look at the other options within your 401k to determine what may be a more appropriate allocation, maybe 80, even 90 or 100% equities if you're still 50 years old. And if you're unsure, that's where I could come in and provide assistance. We would review your 401k plan. Oftentimes we'll get on Zoom and we'll go through the investment options that my clients have access to, and I'll do some due diligence and research on the investment options and help clients determine what would be a more optimal portfolio allocation for their specific plan, with the understanding that in Theo and Cassie's case, she has 20 years until she's going to take $1 from her 401k. So it's very important to have a thorough understanding of what the target date fund is going to do, and therefore maybe recommend alternative solutions for her 401k investment strategy.